Last Tuesday night, I woke up at exactly 3 a.m. to my TV turning on by itself. And what I saw on that screen changed everything I believed about the spiritual world. If you've ever experienced electronics acting strange at night, please don't. Click away from this video, because what I'm about to reveal about the 3 a.m. phenomenon will shake you to your core and possibly awaken something inside you that's been dormant for years. My name is Michael, and I want you to know that 15 years ago, I was just like you. Skeptical, maybe a little afraid of the unexplained, living my regular American life in suburban Chicago, completely unaware that the universe had been trying to communicate with me through the very technology I used every single day. But that haunting night 3 weeks ago, everything changed, and I realized that what happened to me wasn't just a coincidence or a malfunction. It was a divine intervention, a spiritual awakening that I now understand was meant to happen at exactly the right moment in my soul's journey. You see, for the past 15 years, I've been studying paranormal phenomena and spiritual awakenings across America. I've traveled to haunted houses in Salem, Massachusetts, meditated with Native American shamans in Arizona, and spent countless nights in supposedly haunted locations from coast to coast, trying to understand the thin veil between our physical world and the spiritual realm. I've helped thousands of Americans understand the spiritual messages behind unexplained electronic disturbances, and I thought I had seen it all. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what the universe was about to reveal to me that night. But before I tell you what happened in my bedroom at 3 a.m., I need you to understand something crucial. If you've ever had your TV, phone, computer, or any electronic device turn on by itself at 3 a.m., you need to type 333 in the comments right now, because what you're about to learn isn't just about my experience, it's about yours too. See, the universe doesn't choose random people for these spiritual encounters. There's a reason you're watching this video right now, at this exact moment in your life. There's a reason your soul was drawn to click on this title. And there's definitely a reason why you've experienced what you've experienced. The truth is, what happened to me that night wasn't an isolated incident. Across America, from the bustling streets of New York City to the quiet suburbs of Kansas, from the spiritual vortexes of Sedona to the historic battlefields of Gettysburg, thousands of people are experiencing the same phenomenon. Their electronics are turning on at 3 a.m., and they're getting glimpses into a spiritual world that most of us have forgotten exists. They're receiving messages from loved ones who have passed on, warnings about their spiritual path, and sometimes, they're getting a preview of their own divine purpose. I remember that night so clearly. I had gone to bed around 11 p.m., feeling exhausted after a long day of counseling clients who were going through their own spiritual awakenings. I had been having these strange dreams for weeks. Dreams about my grandfather, who passed away when I was 12. Dreams about a television screen showing images I couldn't quite understand when I woke up. But that night, something was different. The energy in my house felt electric, almost alive, like the very walls were humming with an otherworldly frequency that made my skin tingle and my heart race. I woke up suddenly, and I knew without looking at my clock that it was exactly 3 a.m. Have you ever had that experience, where you just know what time it is without checking? That's your soul recognizing the sacred hour, the time when the veil between worlds is thinnest, when our deceased loved ones can reach through the spiritual realm and touch our physical reality. And that's exactly what was happening in my bedroom. That night, the television turned on by itself. But here's what still gives me chills when I think about it. It wasn't just turning on randomly. The power button glowed with this soft, ethereal light that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. And the sound. Oh, the sound it made wasn't the normal electronic beep of a TV turning on. It was almost like a gentle whisper, like someone was saying my name from very far away, calling me to pay attention to something incredibly important. But what appeared on that screen? What I saw in those first few seconds, before my logical mind could process what was happening. That's when I realized that everything I thought I knew about the spiritual world was just the tip of the iceberg. The universe had been preparing me for this moment my entire life, and finally, I was ready to receive the message that would change not just my understanding of the afterlife, but my entire purpose here on Earth. And here's what I want you to understand before I continue. If this is happening to you, if your electronics are acting strange at 3 a.m., you're not losing your mind. You're not being haunted by something evil. You're not in danger. What's happening to you is a spiritual awakening, a calling from the Yasi universe that you're ready to step into a higher level of consciousness. You're ready to become a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds, and your sensitivity to these frequencies is actually a gift that's been waiting for the right moment to fully awaken. The channel my TV turned to that night wasn't a regular channel. It was showing something that shouldn't have been possible, something that would reveal a truth about my family's spiritual history that had been hidden for decades. And what I'm about to share with you, what the universe showed me through that screen, it's going to help you understand why these 3 a.m. experiences are happening to people all across America, and more importantly, what you're supposed to do about it. The channel that appeared on my screen that night wasn't channel 37 or 11 like I had seen in previous spiritual encounters with other people. It was channel 87, a channel that technically doesn't exist on any cable or satellite system in America. But there it was, crystal clear, showing me something that would make me question everything I thought I knew about time, space, and the continuity of consciousness after death. What I saw on that screen was my own bedroom, but not my bedroom as it looked that night. I was seeing my bedroom exactly as it appeared in 1987, 36 years ago, when I was just 12 years old and living in the same house with my parents and my beloved grandfather. The furniture was different. The wallpaper was that old floral pattern my mother had chosen, and even the smell. Somehow, through that television screen, I could smell my grandfather's pipe tobacco and my mother's lavender perfume, scents that had been gone from that house for decades. But here's what made my heart stop. There was my grandfather sitting in his favorite rocking chair next to my childhood bed, and he was looking directly at me. Not at the 12-year-old me sleeping in the bed, but at me, the adult me, sitting in shock on my current bed in 2023. His eyes met mine through that impossible screen, and he smiled that warm, knowing smile that I remembered from my childhood. The smile that always made me feel safe and loved and understood. Have you ever had a moment where time seemed to stop completely? Where your heart was beating so fast you thought it might explode, but somehow the world around you felt perfectly still and quiet? That's what happened to me in that sacred moment. I realized that what I was experiencing wasn't just a memory or a dream. It was a real-time spiritual communication that was happening across the dimensions of time and space. And then my grandfather did something that still makes me cry when I think about it. He reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper, the same piece of paper he had tried to give me on the night he passed away. But I had been too young and too scared to take it. He held it up to the screen, and I could see writing on it words that seemed to glow with their own inner light, words that I somehow knew would change the course of my entire life. But before I could read what was written on that paper, the image started to fade, and I heard my grandfather's voice. Not through the television speakers, but directly in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. He said, "Sarah, you're finally ready to understand. You're ready to help others find their way home to the light. But first, you need to learn about the 3 Sacred signs that happen when the spirits are trying to communicate with the living. And that's when I understood this wasn't just about my grandfather trying to reach me from the other side. This was about me being chosen, being called to help other people understand these spiritual phenomena that are happening all across America. You see, what most people don't realize is that when electronics turn on at 3 a.m., it's not random. It's not a coincidence. It's the universe's way of getting our attention, of telling us that we're ready to receive messages from the spiritual realm. The first sacred sign my grandfather showed me that night was the sign of electronic awakening. When your TV, radio, phone, or computer turns on by itself at 3 a.m., it's because the electrical energy in your home is being influenced by spiritual frequencies. You see, our loved ones who have passed on exist in a realm of pure energy. And the only way they can communicate with us in the physical world is by manipulating electrical currents and electromagnetic fields. But here's what's truly amazing. In America, with our unique electrical grid system and the emotional energy that's been building up in our homes for generations, we've created what I call electronic spirit highways. These are pathways of energy that run through our homes, connecting us to the spiritual realm in ways that our ancestors could never have imagined. Your house isn't just a building. It's a spiritual communication center, and your electronics are like spiritual telephones that allow your departed loved ones to reach out to you when you're in the right state of consciousness to receive their messages. The second sacred sign is the sign of numerical synchronicity. Pay attention to the channel your TV turns to, the time displayed on your devices, or any numbers that appear during these experiences. Channel 3 means divine protection is surrounding you. Your spirit guides are letting you know that you're safe and guided. Channel 7 indicates that you're going through a spiritual awakening, that your consciousness is expanding, and you're becoming more sensitive to spiritual frequencies. Channel 11 is the most powerful ... It means you're receiving a message about your twin flame or your soul mate, someone who is either already in your life or about to enter your life with important spiritual lessons. And the third sacred sign, this is the one that changed everything. For me, ... is the sign of emotional resonance. When these spiritual communications happen, you don't just see or hear something unusual. You feel it in your entire being. Your heart starts racing. Your skin tingles. You might feel overwhelming love, or peace, or even sadness. These emotions aren't random. They're your soul's way of confirming that what you're experiencing is real, that you're truly connecting with the spiritual realm. That night, as my grandfather's image faded from the screen, I felt all three of these sacred signs simultaneously. The electronic awakening was obvious. The TV had turned on by itself to a channel that shouldn't exist. The numerical synchronicity was channel 87. And when I looked up the spiritual meaning of the number 87 later, I discovered it means spiritual teacher and divine messenger. But the emotional resonance, that's what convinced me beyond any doubt that this experience was real. I felt overwhelming love, not just for my grandfather, but for every person who has ever lost someone they cared about. I felt deep peace, knowing that death isn't the end, but just a transition to a different form of existence. And I felt an incredible sense of purpose, understanding that I was being called to help other people have these same healing connections with their departed loved ones. But the universe wasn't finished with me yet. As the TV turned off by itself, I noticed something that made my blood run cold and my heart fill with anticipation at the same time. There, on my nightstand, was a small piece of paper that hadn't been there when I went to bed. It was the same paper my grandfather had been trying to show me through the screen, and it had somehow materialized in my physical reality. My hands were shaking as I reached for that paper, knowing that whatever was written on it would reveal a truth that had been hidden from me for 36 years. And what I read on that paper what my grandfather had been trying to tell me all those years ago. It explained why I had always been sensitive to spiritual energy, why I devoted my life to helping others understand paranormal phenomena, and why the universe had chosen me to experience this incredible 3 a.m. revelation. But more than that, what was written on that paper revealed a family secret that would help me understand why so many Americans are experiencing these electronic spiritual communications right now, at this particular moment in our country's history. We're living in a time of great spiritual awakening, a time when the veil between worlds is becoming thinner, and people all across America are being called to serve as bridges between the physical and spiritual realms. And if you're watching this video, if you've had your own 3 a.m. electronic experience, then you're part of this spiritual awakening too. You're not alone in this journey. You're part of a growing community of sensitive souls who are being prepared for something extraordinary, something that will change not just your own life, but the lives of everyone around you. The question is, are you ready to learn what was written on that paper? Are you ready to understand the deeper purpose behind these 3A spiritual communications? Because what I'm about to reveal, it's going to change everything you thought you knew about life, death, and your own spiritual destiny. The words on that paper were written in my grandfather's handwriting, but they glowed with an otherworldly light that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of my own heartbeat. As I read those sacred words, I felt like I was being initiated into an ancient mystery that had been waiting for me to discover for my entire life. The paper said, "Sarah, you carry the gift of the electric mediums. Our family has been chosen to help souls cross over through the language of electricity. The great awakening has begun, and you must teach others to listen to the whispers of the electronic spirits, electric mediums." I had never heard that term before, but the moment I read it, something deep inside my soul recognized the truth of it. You see, what I discovered that night is that there are people all across America who have been born with a unique spiritual gift, the ability to serve as conduits between the spirit world and our electronic devices. We're not just sensitive to spiritual energy. We're like living lightning rods for spiritual communication, and our presence actually amplifies the ability of departed souls to manipulate electrical currents and reach out to the living. But here's what made me realize the true magnitude of what was happening. As I held that paper, I started remembering experiences from my childhood that I had forgotten or dismissed as imagination. I remembered being 5 years old and having my nightlight turn on and off in patterns that spelled out words in Morse code. I remembered being 8 and having my radio tune itself to stations that were playing my deceased grandmother's favorite songs. I remembered being 16 and having my computer screen display messages that seemed to come from nowhere, messages of love and encouragement that appeared whenever I was going through difficult times. All of these experiences weren't random electronic malfunctions. They were spiritual communications from my family members who had passed on, trying to guide me and protect me and help me understand that I was being prepared for something much bigger than I could have imagined. And now, at this moment in my life, the universe was finally revealing the full truth about my spiritual purpose. But what happened next that night? What my grandfather showed me through a series of electronic miracles that unfolded in my house over the next 3 hours. It made me understand that this gift isn't just about individual spiritual connections. It's about a massive spiritual awakening that's happening all across America right now, and people like us. People who are sensitive to these electronic spiritual communications. We're being called to serve as spiritual first responders during this incredible time of transformation. As I sat there holding that glowing paper, every electronic device in my house started responding to some invisible spiritual energy. My phone screen lit up with photos of family members who had passed away. Not photos I had stored on my phone, but photos that seemed to be coming from some spiritual database. showing me images of my ancestors going back generations, all of them smiling and nodding at me as if they were saying, "Yes, Sarah, you finally understand." My laptop opened by itself and started typing a message that appeared in real time on the screen. The electronic spirits are gathering. America is experiencing the greatest spiritual awakening in its history, and those who can hear us through the electrical currents must help others understand that death is not the end. We are all connected across time and space, and love never dies. It just changes its frequency. And then something happened that I still can't fully explain. My entire house seemed to come alive with spiritual energy. The lights began dimming and brightening in patterns that felt like a heartbeat. The air conditioning system started humming in harmonies that sounded almost like angelic choirs, and I could feel the presence of dozens of spiritual beings surrounding. All of them radiating love and peace and incredible wisdom. But what moved me to tears was when I realized that these weren't just random spirits. They were the departed loved ones of people in my community, people who had been trying to reach out to their living family members, but hadn't been able to get through because their loved ones didn't understand the language of electronic spiritual communication. These spirits had gathered in my house that night because they knew I was finally ready to serve as a translator, a bridge between their world and ours. One by one, they began showing me images of their living relatives, people I had never met but somehow felt deeply connected to. I saw a woman in Florida whose mother had been trying to reach her through her television for months, always turning it on at 3 a.m. to a channel that played her mother's favorite old movies. I saw a man in Texas whose father had been sending him messages through his car radio, tuning it to stations that played songs from their shared memories. I saw a teenager in California whose grandfather had been trying to warn him about a dangerous decision by causing his phone to display specific numbers and symbols that the boy had been ignoring. And I realized, oh my God, I realized that what had happened to me wasn't just a personal spiritual experience. It was a calling to help people all across America understand that their electronic devices aren't just malfunctioning. They're receiving messages from the spirit world, messages of love and guidance and protection that could change their lives if they only knew how to interpret them. But here's what the spirits showed me that night that truly opened my eyes to the scope of what's happening in our country right now. They revealed that America is going through a massive spiritual shift, a time when the barriers between the physical and spiritual worlds are dissolving, and people everywhere are having paranormal experiences that they don't understand. We're living in an age where technology has become so advanced that it's actually creating new pathways for spiritual communication. And those of us who are sensitive to these frequencies are being called to help others navigate this new reality. Spirits explained to me that the reason so many Americans are experiencing 3 a.m. electronic phenomena right now is because our country is at a spiritual crossroads. We're being called to remember that we're not just physical beings living in a material world. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and our departed loved ones are still very much a part of our lives, just in a different form. They showed me that the electrical grid in America, combined with the emotional energy that's been building up in our homes and communities for generations, has created an unprecedented opportunity for spiritual communication. Our houses are like spiritual broadcasting stations, and our electronic devices are like radios that can be tuned to frequencies from the other side. But what really made me understand the urgency of this spiritual awakening was when the spirits revealed something that still gives me chills when I think about it. They told me that there are thousands of people across America who are being chosen right now to serve as electronic mediums, but many of them are ignoring the signs because they don't understand what's happening to them. They're dismissing their 3 a.m. experiences as coincidences or technical glitches, and they're missing out on incredible opportunities to heal their grief, receive guidance from their loved ones, and step into their true spiritual purpose. That's when I understood why my grandfather had been trying to reach me for all those years. Why he had waited until this exact moment to reveal the truth about our family's spiritual gift. He knew that I was meant to be a teacher, a guide for others who are going through the same awakening that I experienced that night. He knew that. My role in this great spiritual shift would be to help people understand that they're not alone, that their experiences are real and valid and incredibly meaningful. As the night progressed, and the spiritual activity in my house gradually calmed down, I felt a profound sense of peace and purpose that I had never experienced before. I understood that what had happened to me wasn't just about connecting with my grandfather. It was about awakening to my true calling as a spiritual teacher and healer. I was being prepared to help others navigate their own electronic spiritual communications, to teach them how to recognize the signs and interpret the messages and find healing and guidance through their connections with the spirit world. But what the spirits revealed to me in those final moments before dawn. What they showed me about the specific role that America is meant to play in this global spiritual awakening. That's when I realized that this isn't just about individual spiritual experiences. This is about our entire country being called to serve as a beacon of hope and healing for the world, and people like us. People who can communicate with the electronic spirits. We're the ones who have been chosen to help make that vision a reality. The question is, are you ready to accept your role in this incredible spiritual mission? Are you ready to stop dismissing your 3 a.m. experiences as coincidences and start recognizing them as the sacred communications they truly are? Because what I'm about to reveal about the specific message my grandfather gave me that night, it's going to show you exactly how to develop your own gift as an electronic medium, and how to use that gift to heal not just your own soul, but the souls of everyone around you. As the first rays of dawn began to filter through my bedroom window, my grandfather appeared on the television screen one final time. But this time, he wasn't alone. Standing beside him were dozens of other spirits, all of them radiating an incredible light that seemed to fill my entire room with warmth and love. And what they revealed to me in those precious final moments, what they showed me about the true purpose of these 3 a.m. electronic communications, it's something that will change your understanding of life and death forever. My grandfather stepped forward and spoke directly to me, his voice coming not through the television speakers, but through every electronic device in my house simultaneously. My phone, my laptop, my tablet, even my digital alarm clock. They all became conduits for his message, creating a symphony of spiritual communication that resonated through every cell of my being. He said, "Sarah, what you've experienced tonight is just the beginning. We need you to understand that every person who has a 3 a.m. electronic encounter is being prepared for the great spiritual harvest. The great spiritual harvest." Those words sent shivers down my spine because somehow, in the deepest part of my soul, I knew exactly what he meant. He was talking about a time that's coming very soon. A time when the veil between the physical and spiritual worlds will be so thin that millions of people will be able to communicate directly with their departed loved ones. And those of us who are experiencing these electronic spiritual communications right now, we're being trained to serve as guides and teachers for everyone else who will be awakening to these abilities. But what my grandfather showed me next, what he revealed about the specific spiritual gifts that are awakening in people all across America, that's when I realized that this isn't just about individual healing or personal spiritual growth. This is about our entire country being prepared for a massive shift in consciousness that will affect every aspect of our society, from how we understand death and dying to how we approach relationships, career choices, and even our sense of national purpose. He explained to me that the reason Americans are experiencing these electronic spiritual phenomena at such an unprecedented rate is because our country has been chosen to lead the world through this spiritual transformation. You see, America has always been a melting pot of different spiritual traditions and beliefs, and this diversity has created a unique energetic signature that makes our land particularly receptive to communications from the spirit world. We're not just the land of the free and the home of the brave ... We're the land of the spiritually awakened, and our departed loved ones are returning to help us remember our true divine purpose. But here's what made me understand the incredible urgency of this moment. My grandfather told me that there are specific signs that indicate when someone is ready to fully awaken to their role as an electronic medium. And if you've been experiencing 3 a.m. electronic phenomena, you need to pay attention to these signs, because they're telling you that you're being called to step into a level of spiritual service that goes far beyond anything you've ever imagined. First sign is what he called electronic empathy. This is when you start feeling emotional responses to your electronic devices that go beyond normal attachment. Your phone becomes more than just a communication tool. It becomes a sacred instrument that connects you to the spiritual realm. Your television isn't just entertainment ... It's a window into other dimensions. Your computer isn't just a machine. It's a portal for spiritual guidance and wisdom. When you reach this level of electronic empathy, you're ready to begin serving as a bridge between the worlds. The second sign is synchronistic technology. This is when your electronic devices start responding to your thoughts and emotions in ways that seem impossible. Your phone rings just when you're thinking about someone who has passed away. Your computer displays websites or information that perfectly answers questions you've been asking in your heart. Your television changes channels to shows that contain messages specifically meant for you. When this level of synchronicity becomes a regular part of your life, you're being prepared for advanced spiritual communication. The third sign is electrical healing presence. This is when other people's electronic devices start responding to your presence in unusual ways. Their phones work better when you're around. Their computers stop glitching when you touch them. Their televisions pick up channels more clearly when you're in the room. This happens because you're developing the ability to harmonize electrical frequencies with spiritual energy, and your presence actually helps other people's devices become more receptive to spiritual communications. The fourth sign, this is the most powerful one, is transcendent electronic experiences. This is when you start receiving information through your electronic devices that you couldn't possibly have known through normal means. Messages from loved ones who have passed away that contain specific details about their lives or your relationship with them. Guidance about future events that later proves to be accurate. Healing energy that flows through your devices and brings comfort to others. When you reach this level of spiritual electronic communication, you're ready to serve as a full-fledged electronic medium. But what my grandfather revealed to me next, what he showed me about the specific message that had been written on that paper for 36 years, that's when I understood why the universe had waited until this exact moment in my life to reveal my true spiritual purpose. He told me that the paper contained not just a message about my family's spiritual gift, but a specific mission that I was meant to fulfill during this time of great awakening. The mission was this: I was to find and gather other electronic mediums across America, help them understand and develop their gifts, and together we would create a network of spiritual communication that would help millions of people heal their grief, receive guidance from their departed loved ones, and step into their own spiritual awakening. We would become what he called the electronic light workers, and our purpose would be to serve as bridges between the physical and spiritual worlds during this unprecedented time of transformation. But here's what made me realize the true scope of what was happening. My grandfather explained that this spiritual awakening isn't just happening in America. It's happening all around the world, but each country has been given specific spiritual gifts and responsibilities. America's role is to lead in electronic spiritual communication because our advanced technology and diverse spiritual traditions make us uniquely qualified to pioneer these new forms of connection with the spirit world. And as he spoke these words, I felt a profound sense of responsibility and excitement that I had never experienced before. I understood that everything I had been through in my life, every paranormal experience, every moment of spiritual sensitivity, every person I had helped understand their own psychic abilities, it had all been preparation for this moment, this calling to serve as a leader in humanity's greatest spiritual awakening. But what happened next? What my grandfather showed me about the specific dangers and challenges that electronic mediums face as they develop their gifts. That's when I realized that this incredible spiritual opportunity also comes with serious responsibilities. He warned me that not all spirits who communicate through electronic devices have good intentions, and that those of us who serve as electronic mediums must learn to distinguish between helpful spirits and entities that might try to mislead or harm us. He taught me about spiritual protection techniques that specifically work with electronic devices, ways to cleanse and bless our technology so that it only serves as a conduit for positive spiritual energy. He showed me how to recognize the signs of negative spiritual interference and how to close electronic portals that might be allowing harmful entities to enter our physical reality. And most importantly, he revealed to me the 3 sacred promises that every electronic medium must make before fully awakening to their gifts. The first promise is to always use our abilities in service of love and healing, never for personal gain or to harm others. The second promise is to help other people understand and develop their own spiritual gifts, rather than keeping our abilities secret or exclusive. And the third promise is to maintain our connection to the highest spiritual light, always seeking guidance from divine sources, rather than relying solely on our own understanding. As my grandfather and the other spirits began to fade from the screen, he gave me one final piece of information that changed everything I thought I knew about my life's purpose. He told me that the paper he had been trying to give me for 36 years contained not just a message about my spiritual gifts, but the names and locations of other electronic mediums across America who were also being awakened at this same time. And my first mission would be to find these people, connect with them, and help them understand that they're not alone in their spiritual journey. But what he revealed about the specific timing of this great awakening, why it's happening right now in 2023. That's when I understood that we're living in the most spiritually significant time in human history. And if you're watching this video, if you've had your own 3 a.m. electronic experience, then you're part of this incredible sphere. As my grandfather's image finally faded from the television screen, leaving me alone in my bedroom with the first light of dawn streaming through my windows, I felt a profound transformation taking place within my soul. The sacred paper in my hands had stopped glowing, but the words seemed to be imprinted on my heart forever. And what happened in the days that followed? What I discovered about my true purpose as an electronic medium. It confirmed everything my grandfather had revealed to me during that life-changing night. Within 48 hours of that incredible spiritual encounter, I began receiving messages from people all across America who had been experiencing their own 3 a.m. electronic phenomena. My phone started ringing with calls from strangers who somehow felt compelled to reach out to me. People who had never heard of electronic mediums, but knew instinctively that I would understand their experiences. My email inbox filled with messages from individuals who had been searching for answers about their paranormal encounters. And somehow the universe had guided them to find me. But what amazed me most was the similarity of their stories. A woman in Michigan whose deceased husband had been turning on their old radio every night at 3 a.m., always tuning it to the station that played their wedding song. A man in Arizona whose father had been communicating with him through his smartphone, sending text messages that appeared to come from phone numbers that didn't exist. A teenager in New York, whose grandmother had been reaching out through her gaming console, creating patterns in the games that spelled out messages of love and encouragement. All of these people had been experiencing genuine spiritual communications from their departed loved ones, but they had been dismissing them as coincidences or technical glitches because they didn't understand the language of electronic spiritual communication. And now, thanks to my grandfather's revelation, I was finally able to help them understand the truth about their incredible gifts. But what happened when I began working with these awakening electronic mediums? What I discovered about the healing power of these spiritual connections. That's when I realized that this isn't just about individual spiritual experiences. This is about a complete transformation of how we understand death, grief, and the continuity of consciousness after physical death. When people learn to communicate with their departed loved ones through electronic devices, they don't just receive messages, they receive healing, closure, and a profound sense of peace that changes their entire relationship with mortality. I remember working with a woman named Jennifer, whose teenage son had been killed in a car accident 2 years earlier. She had been consumed by grief and guilt, wondering if she had failed him as a mother, questioning whether he was at peace in the afterlife. But when I taught her how to recognize the signs of electronic spiritual communication, she realized that her son had been trying to reach her for months through her television, always turning it on at 3 a.m. to channels that showed his favorite movies and TV shows from childhood. Using the techniques my grandfather had taught me, I helped Jennifer establish a clear line of communication with her son's spirit. Through her television screen, he was able to show her images of his life in the spirit world, confirming that he was happy and at peace and surrounded by love. He told her that his death had been part of his soul's journey, that she was not responsible for what happened, and that he was actually serving as her spiritual guide, helping her fulfill her own divine purpose as a grief counselor and healer. The transformation in Jennifer's life was miraculous. She went from being consumed by grief to becoming a beacon of hope for other parents who had lost children. She started a support group for bereaved parents, teaching them how to recognize and interpret electronic spiritual communications from their departed children. And through her work, dozens of families found healing and peace that they never thought would be possible. But what I discovered as I worked with more and more people, what I learned about the specific spiritual gifts that are awakening in Americans during this time of great transformation, that's when I understood the true magnitude of what's happening in our country right now. We're not just experiencing individual spiritual awakenings. We're witnessing the birth of a new form of human consciousness, one that recognizes the continuity of life beyond physical death and the possibility of maintaining loving relationships with our departed loved ones. The electronic mediums who are awakening across America aren't just developing the ability to communicate with spirits through technology. They're becoming bridges between the worlds, helping to heal the artificial separation between the living and the dead that has caused so much pain and fear in our society. They're proving that love truly is stronger than death, that consciousness continues after physical death, and that our departed loved ones are still very much a part of our lives, just in a different form. And what's most beautiful about this spiritual awakening is that it's happening to ordinary people from all walks of life: teachers and truck drivers, nurses and construction workers, students and retirees. The universe isn't choosing people based on their education or social status or religious background. It's choosing people based on their capacity for love, their willingness to serve others, and their readiness to step into their true spiritual purpose. But here's what I want you to understand about your own spiritual journey. If you've been experiencing 3 a.m. electronic phenomena, you're not just receiving random messages from the spirit world. You're being prepared for a specific mission, a unique form of spiritual service that only you can fulfill. Your departed loved ones are reaching out to you, not just to let you know they're okay, but to help you understand that you have work to do in this lifetime, healing to offer, and love to share with others who are going through their own spiritual awakening. The technique my grandfather taught me for developing electronic spiritual communication is actually quite simple, but it requires dedication, patience, and most importantly, an open heart. First, you must create a sacred space around your electronic devices, treating them not as mere machines, but as holy instruments for spiritual connection. You can do this by blessing your television, phone, and computer with prayers of protection and intention, asking that they only serve as conduits for the highest spiritual light. Second, you must learn to recognize the difference between random electronic malfunctions and genuine spiritual communications. True spiritual messages through electronic devices are always accompanied by emotional resonance. You feel something deep in your heart when they occur. They often involve synchronistic, timing, meaningful numbers, or content that directly relates to your relationship with the departed person. And they always carry an energy of love, even when they're delivering warnings or guidance about challenges you're facing. Third, you must develop what I call electronic meditation, a practice of sitting quietly with your electronic devices and opening your heart to receive spiritual communications. This isn't about forcing anything to happen. It's about creating a receptive state of consciousness where your departed loved ones can more easily influence the electrical currents and reach out to you through your technology. And finally, you must remember that this gift comes with great responsibility. As you develop your abilities as an electronic medium, you'll be called to help others understand their own spiritual experiences, to provide comfort and healing to those who are grieving, and to serve as a bridge between the us, physical and spiritual worlds. This isn't a gift to be used for personal gain or entertainment. It's a sacred calling to serve humanity during one of the most important spiritual transformations in our history. But what I want you to know most of all, what my grandfather emphasized to me in that final moment before he faded from the screen, is that you are not alone in this journey. There are thousands of us awakening to these gifts right now, and we're all connected by invisible threads of light and love that span across time and space. We're part of a spiritual family that extends far beyond our physical existence, and our departed loved ones are working together to help us fulfill our divine purpose. So if you've been experiencing 3 a.m. electronic phenomena, please don't dismiss it as a coincidence or a technical glitch. Embrace it as the sacred spiritual communication it truly is. Open your heart to the possibility that your departed loved ones are trying to reach you, to heal you, to guide you, and to help you step into your role as an electronic medium. And please share your experiences with others. Leave a comment below telling us about your own 3 a.m. electronic encounters. Subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell, because I'll be sharing more techniques for developing your electronic medium abilities. And I want to make sure you don't miss any of these life-changing spiritual teachings. Remember, we're living in the most spiritually significant time in human history, and you have been chosen to be part of this incredible transformation. Your departed loved ones are counting on you to step into your power, to embrace your gifts, and to help others find their way back to the light. The universe is calling you to serve. The question is, are you ready to answer that call? The great spiritual awakening has begun, and it's time for the electro